doing the chapter 7 a second time. I got cut off. I don't know. There was like some weird things going on. Um, I've been getting like some bugs or something, and that. Whereas the chapter 4 or 5 that got cut off, it was okay because I kind of repeated myself. But the 5 minutes that got cut off the previous video, um, I think we cut off some at least half of what I was going to say. But we're back in Mulligan Stew, chapter 7. I read it this weekend, but which is like 5 or 6 days ago now. And The Wood So Wild, chapter 7. This is the chapter I've already read. I did some poems from The Sweat of Love, and The Mask of Fungo's in here. The Sweat of Love by Lorna Flambeau. So let me just mention that he wrote this. He finished this book and he wrote it in 71 to 75. It was called what was it called? Synthetic Ink, and then he moved on to Crystal Vision, which also had a different name, and was more. It's a similar novel. We'll probably get to that later. But this book, he had like 3 books kind of trying to get published during the 70s, and mostly he published poetry and some fiction. So between the 2 videos, I realized that there was a book. There were about 10 or 15 years ago, they did a whole book about Mulligan Stew. This was edited by John O'Brien and I think Stephanie Sobel, and I wasn't aware of this, so it was kind of good to get some new views, because I haven't read the Review of Contemporary Fiction for many years. I didn't even know they were doing it. And of course I did my own issue, the Grove Press reader, which is over here. Let's see. Let me plug myself here. Okay, I'm coming back. Okay, so this is like what it looks like. I don't know how long they did it, but I mean, John O'Brien's been dead for 5 or 10 years, so I don't think. And here's the one I did in 1990, like this old fossil. So if you want to check out about Grove, we did that. And there's some remembrances. There's some big names here in this issue. But I marked out a few things. Let's see. What was this? Sorrentino argues that the place of fiction might be more real than reality itself. In the book, I think I would like to do what I always wanted to do, which is put the book into book sections verbatim and other works of mine, books, stories, poems, essays, reviews, and I would just like to bust the goddamn novel apart and put it together again for all, and prove to myself that fiction is real into itself, that it is a total invention, that it's total prose, that it's absolute reality of fiction that matters in terms of writing fiction. So that's kind of interesting. Yeah, I never really thought of it. I mean, because this is a difficult book. It's a book of letters, an epistolary novel. It's a stew. It's kind of thrown together, different parts, the journals and the writing, the poems, the plays. It's always challenging the novelness of itself. And in this first essay, Brian McHale referred to it as a dossier novel. So instead of not only letters, there's also it's like files, evidence of reality of writing. There's another thing here. Sorrentino writes in his essay, "Genetic Coding," Mulligan Stew is only intelligible when in place in the sequence of forms known as the modernist movement. So there was one interview that quoted my interview in here. So I was kind of happy about that, but they spelled my name wrong. There's a couple pictures of Sorrentino had I guess he maybe lived here, but he had like a bit of an outline of Mulligan Stew, new, what you call new book. So it's like let's see, images on these new book. Yeah, and oh yeah, then yeah, there was a mention of there was a he won an award, but he in '94 and he rejected it. So that's kind of interesting. I didn't know that. Let's see what else. I'll probably ask Chris about that. And then yeah, he used these composition books just like I did back in the '80s and '90s. So I feel my books are on there. So here's and this the second one by Tyrus Miller. The quotes my interview in this about Mulligan Stew. So you can see that on alt text, Alexander Lawrence. And yeah, there's interviews. There's articles about the Tyrus Miller one's about the flawless play restored, the Mask of Fungo. The original one by Stephanie Sobel's kind of like a general overview. And then Ramsey Scott, he writes about political fantasies, some of the poetry. He deals with some of the poetry. And it's good to read some of like Sorrentino. So, well, I'll stop there, and let's get to the chapter 7, The Wood So Wild. So this is like this is kind of the, I mean, this is almost 200 pages in, and kind of the novel kind of explodes in this chapter. We have it's a short chapter at the beginning. It's kind of like the main character, Martin Halperin's going over to Club Zap to check in on Ned, see what's going on. And yeah, the Wood So Wild. So it's a very short 2-page chapter. Then we get to Halperin's journal where he's hanging out with Solis, and they talk about going to baseball games. And there's like a little baseball score there. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. Can we see it here? Yeah. There. Yeah. That's good. Gotta go all the way up. And then we get Lamotte's letter to Lorna Flambeau. So I guess this shows up in a couple books where, you know, the protagonist or Sorrentino himself is presented with poems from a female poet who's somewhat erotic poetry. And how do you, I think, yeah, in fact, the opening of Imaginative Qualities of Actual Things kind of talks about that. I think it kind of goes back to that. So this is like in the real time. So we get to read the poems. The poems are kind of like kind of a parody of maybe E. Cummings or Robert Bly or something. They're real sensual poems, and he's making fun of them. And yeah, when I first read this book, I'd always go back. Me and my friend Pat Quinn would read these poems to each other, just you know, because that was like something we go to. So we get to Halperin's journal too, and he's just talking about Ned returning from town. He's depressed, and he's talking about Solis and hanging out with them, and they're talking about you know, like maybe there's the city that they try to go check out when, you know, apart from the novel, what was kind of boring, so they're looking for some other cities. And then they found there was like some guy who's a writer that they met, and he gave him the Mask of Fungo, and he wrote this. So we get the Mask of Fungo. It was written by a baseball player, And so we get that. So obviously this kind of goes back to the Circe chapter of Ulysses. But it's I mean, it's a little bit like it kind of reminds me of 60s plays too, like Marat Sod and stuff like that, where it's kind of crazy. And I wrote I wrote kind of a tribute to this the story of Bliss, where the characters it becomes a play, and it's actually more like this than James Joyce, really. So this goes on. This is like crazy play. With there's the main character Susan B. Anthony. There's like poets. There's lists of there's the maskers. There's a few writers like James Joyce, and Foots Fungo is one of the main characters. And a fungo, if you don't know, fungo is like a fungo bat. You hit pop flies, and Ty Cobb shows up in this, and Marquise de Sade, and Roberto Bly, and some other people, and just some regular people. And I mean, the whole mask kind of seems like a baseball game, like it's kind of like 9 innings. And like Joyce, there's a lot of songs in here. Like everybody has like a theme song, and then we get to Lamont's. I call him Lamont, and this is just basically going back to the writer's question and answer thing. Where have all the flowers gone? What are the patterns for? Did you once see Shelley playing? Well, who the devil will change a rabbit for a rat? Why should a rich man steal? And I guess in the writer's journal, this is about the third time they've come to it. It's just the way of practicing your writing. Whoa, where'd that come from? Okay, is that the same thing? Oh, I guess that's another one, another piece of paper. Okay, so here's another letter to Laura Flambeau, and in this one he kind of talks about he wants to meet her again. They had sort of a date, and Laura Flambeau kind of rejected him and punched him, and he was turned on by that or something. And that's Anthony Lamont. And then so we get back to Lamont. So, and then in his notebook he's calling her a bitch, and then he's saying that he bought a new tie and stuff. And then there's another letter to Sheila, and he gets more desperate and more competitive with Dermot Trellis. And the Sheila letters are some of my favorite parts of the book. And he finishes it with P.S. You of course understand that I have nothing against Dermot personally. Okay, of course, that's all he has. Okay, so that's letters to Sheila. So that's pretty good. But I mean, like I said, chapters 4 and 5 and chapter 7 are my favorites. And now we get to some shorter chapters, and anything could happen. I mean, that was a pretty crazy chapter. I mean, there's other books. I mean, I know I compared it to John Barth's letters, but there's Luigi Pirandello, Gabriel Garcia, Gabriel Infante. Gabriel Garcia Infante was like the Three Trapped Tigers is there's probably like some George Perec, where there's some kind of like some stuff like that, and there's other people, but I think Sorrentino kind of hit upon this first. I mean, kind of, the characters having a life of their own, and he kind of hit upon that idea. And I think somebody in this book kind of compared, said maybe Pynchon's The Crying of Lot 40. Is it 40? Lot 49. There's a part where they do a play, or Oedipus Moss does a play or something, and it's a play within a book, in that thing too. And like I guess there's could be comparisons to Pynchon. The sort of I mean, besides Williams, I mean, Sorrentino, there's very, I mean, I think he kind of didn't like any comparisons at all to any other writers. I mean, there was kind of a connection to Willie Poe. He had his own kind of methods, and so yeah, I think yeah. So we didn't have any technical difficulties, and I think the other video would have been about 15 minutes. That's pretty good. So I mean, I'm up to page 226, and She is the Queenly Pearl is next. It's a chapter that's 50, this is a long chapter. Okay, so it's 50 pages, but there's not the usual interruptions. There's probably like letters, so yeah, I got this online cheaply. It was some guy that was kind of in the LA area, so I was able to get that. So I suggest checking this out if you want to learn more about Mulligan Stew. There's, and check out the videos of him reading. I mean, yeah, let me mention again some of the books. Crystal Vision was the book he did after, which I'm going to probably read pretty soon. And some of the other related books. Flawless Paper Story. This was published by Black Sparrow Press, which is mostly known for publishing the Bukowski books. And again, Splendid Hotel, which is mentioned in this book. And this is almost like a miniature version of Mulligan Stew. So if you like Mulligan Stew, you should read this book as well. If you get frustrated with Mulligan Stew, you should just read this book, because you can read, it's only 100 pages and you can read it in about an hour. 65 pages. It's very short. It's kind of like Mulligan Stew with as a prose poem, and there's Liszt and Anthony Lamott and some other characters that kind of come over, and you can probably get this book for $5 at any used bookstore. Okay, so I guess that's it. If you have any questions, I'm going to be pretty soon, probably sometime next week, I'm going to be talking to some of the experts, and we'll ask them like all the questions I have about Mulligan Stew, and I'm really enjoying it, rereading it, and it's, I'm a student, and it's great to, even when I was a student, I was always reading a book outside of class. So, okay, so we're getting kind of long here. So I don't know if I want to delete the other video or keep them both. So we'll just keep the both videos and have a part 1 and a part 2. And there it is. If there's any other books you think I should read, after this, I'm going to probably read Crystal Vision and That Swim Two Birds. Okay, goodbye, everybody. Good night, and we'll probably see us the next chapter sometime this weekend or early next week.